Welcome everyone to our final webinar for the RAN Women's Online Forum. Our topic today is recruit and retain more female coaches and referees. I am the Regional Development Manager for Rugby Americas North and have worked in rugby development for the last 11 years in all aspects of the game. So what I really want to do, and that kind of answers, again, Jake, you had a great question about, as male college coaches, how can we attract more females to that environment? What can we make it? How can we change that environment? So I'm really glad you asked that question. I'm hoping that by the end of my information, you have some concrete ways that you can take and put them into your community. When I say community, this could be your rugby union, this could be your referee society, your coaches group or association, your rugby club, whatever your community is what I'm referring to there. And I think when we talk on topics like this, we want to jump to solutions. We want to make sure that we have something to fix the problem that's in front of us, but we don't actually really understand the problem on its own. So I want to talk a little bit first about some of the challenges. And these are challenges and fears. And these are some of the challenges and fears, the most common ones that I hear throughout the last 11 years of development working in this space. Culture is one of them. And we talk about our environment. And we just had an amazing example of Tamara creating a very good culture and environment that is conducive for women wanting to be a part of it. Right now, the culture around most referee and coaching groups in rugby in North America and around the world is older white men and the systems that have been in place for years. There's nothing wrong with that. It just means that no women have come for the last however many years, so we got to change some things. And it's typically women aren't coming to that environment because they're not seeing it as a culture that they want to be a part of. The next two kind of related to each other. We hear a lot that women apply for jobs when they are 100% qualified, and men apply for that same job when they're only 60% qualified. It's no different for coaching and refereeing. We fear what being a coach and a referee actually means, and we don't feel like we have enough knowledge and experience to do it, even though we already do. So again, how do we make women feel more comfortable and confident stepping into those roles? And those are going to be some of our solutions. And then lack of appropriate training. This again is, we tend to have some finite opportunities for training and education, which again is a big jump from taking a level 1 to stepping on the field. So how can we create some additional opportunities for them to again create that comfort and confidence to step into that role? So really important to understand some of the challenges here. And at the end of the day, I want you to ask yourself, have you actually asked the question? And this is not asking yourself the question, it's asking the females the question. Have you gone to the current females who are in your coaching or refereeing groups and said, why did you want to be a coach or a referee? What challenges did you have stepping into this role? Was there anything we could do to support you? Or for the women who showed up and then never came back, why did they never come back? Did you ask them the question? Or for the women that have not even been a part of your community, have you asked them, what could we do differently to help, support you stepping into this role? There is very little data out there on, I'd say, rugby in general, but then specifically women's rugby. And I know there's some other stuff going around right now to gather more data, but specifically in your community, the more data that you can gather and test some things out, say, hey, we pulled all the women and we wanted to try this new thing. Try it, get some feedback, try something different. But I would say more often than not, women are not asked the question of, what can we do to support you to get into this role? And again, we're jumping into solutions before we fully understand the challenges and the fears and the problems behind it. So again, the first step in everything that you're doing to change this is to gather some data and ask the question. So now let's get into some solutions. Some of these are not revolutionary ideas, I promise you that. I'm hopefully going to present them in a different way to make you think about it a little bit differently. First one, pretty obvious here, we're talking about role models. Okay, if you can see it, you can be it. We've heard that, I think, on every one of our webinars this month about how important role models are, especially for women. And I'm going to give you 2 words that I want you to think about when you think about role models, which is consistent and constant. Consistent, meaning we need to have consistent messaging around our role models. I don't know the last time that you've maybe searched for a picture or video of a woman coaching or refereeing rugby. They're not as easy to find as you might think. So we need to be flooding the market with imagery and messaging around who these women are. And with consistency, I want you to think about another word with the letter C, which is connection. Females want connection. We want to connect to everything that we're a part of. We want to connect with the people that we're involved with. So it's so important that we create connection in our messaging for our role models. And I don't mean rugby here. Rugby is the constant, right? Rugby is the baseline. We're all connected already on rugby. I want to connect in a different way. I want to connect with Tiff on her favorite defensive activity that she likes to do at practice. And I want to connect with Emily on her pregame routine before she steps out on the field with that whistle. And I want to connect with Jenna and her favorite color, what she eats for breakfast before a game, because that connection is so much more powerful than the rugby connection, because we're humanizing who these women are, and we're not putting them up on a pedestal where they're unreachable. We're making them reachable, but you have to be consistent in that. And then the other word that I gave you, which is constant, is we're not doing this enough. I see a lot of times with groups and communities, they're profiling their one female referee or their one female coach, and they did an article on her back in March, and then I saw nothing else after that. You should probably, I'm going to say baseline, 2 times a month, be profiling in some way your females that you have involved. And that could be a 1-minute video after they walk off the field in the game. Hey, Julia, how was that game? Tell me about it. What was going through your head when you had that one scrum that didn't seem to be working? Or, hey, Jenna, great game out there. What are some of the fun cool down activities that you wanted to do with your players? You're humanizing these women. And again, you're creating that connection, but you're doing it constantly. And if you only show it once, then you see it once and you kind of set it, forget it. But if you see it all the time and you're seeing more and more of it, then women are going to get interested, and they're going to be more willing to get involved in that environment because now they're connected to somebody who's involved. So again, consistency in messaging to create that connection, and then being constant. So set out a social media plan and say, next month is September, we're going to profile these 2 women. Next month is October, we're going to do these type of videos. And the last thing on this I would say is, if you don't have women involved currently and you need to profile some women, then borrow women from other, countries or regions. Contact me and say, Erin, I need a picture of a female coach or a female referee, and we will support you in that. So people will be happy to, give you their role models so that you can create them for your community as well. Mentorship and shadowing. So this, again, not revolutionary ideas here, but the thing I want you to think about with these 2 pieces is formalizing these processes. So mentorship, I hear a lot of times it's, we tried mentorship, it didn't work. And then I ask, well, what did you do? Did you walk in and say, we need some mentors this season? And you got a couple hands and you said, great, Tamara, here's your mentor, Erin, go. And then you never touched it again. That, we need to formalize it in the sense that we need to help our mentors be successful. Okay, so again, that connection piece, we need to create that anchor into that community. So now when Tamara walks in the door as a new coach or a new referee, and it's, hey, here's Erin, who's going to be your mentor. Erin, here's a 1-page document on how to be an awesome mentor with some questions you should ask, and you should probably be meeting with Tamara once a month. Tamara, here's your mentorship 1-pager that says, we want you to create a mentorship plan. What are the 2 things you want to work on in your coaching or your refereeing? You're going to work with Erin on that. And then you set a template of, or sort of guidance for what they can work on. And then you check in with them and just say, hey, Erin, how's the mentorship going with Tamara? And it's like, oh, it's going great. And then Tamara, how's it going with Erin? And we do this in club rugby. We don't do it in coaching and refereeing. A lot of times, especially within US and I think maybe Canada, is you get the rookie and the vet paired up when you join a team. So I join a team, I get a senior player is paired with me. And again, that's my anchor into that club. So now if I have questions about it, or if I'm, feeling nervous about something, I have that lifeline into that community. And that's what you're doing with mentorship. Tons of research in this space, education and business primarily. So there, you can Google what's a quick, easy mentorship guide and steal some of that information and then recreate it for rugby. But again, we want that connection into that community, and you're creating that by a formalized mentorship process. Shadowing is another really great opportunity, a little bit more in the training and education space. Again, formalize it. So I take my level 1 and then I'm assigned to a game, or I take my level 1 and I have to jump into my first practice with my team. If we can add something in the middle, which is I take my level 1 and then now I get to go out to Tamara's practice or game with the Guardian Angels and I get to shadow her. Or I get on the field and I shadow a referee and see what they're seeing. And I'm right there with them. I'm in the same position. I'm hearing what they're calling. And I'm having that experience. I'm creating the two things that are the two fears of women the most, which is comfort and confidence. Now I have multiple hours of shadowing somebody else, gaining more education, knowledge, and experience. And then for my second point there, I'm shadowing first to learn, and then I'm shadowed to improve. So I shadowed Tamara 3 times at her practices and her games. And then she shadows me she gives me half her practice or 15-minute session. And she shadows me and gives me feedback. Or same thing with refereeing. I shadow 3 games and then my shadow, the person I'm shadowing becomes my shadow. And now I'm making the calls and I'm getting the feedback later. You can do this in practices, games, planning sessions. On and off the field, you could do it by radio or being on the field. But this truly is, if done right, and I always get the question too of like, you would put 2 referees on the field at the same time? Absolutely. The referee doesn't get involved in the game and shouldn't interrupt the game. So having a person shadowing them should not do that. And again, with your culture, which we'll talk about in a second, is, you talk to the players and get them ready for that. And everyone's going to be supportive if they know it's a new person coming into that role. So 2 really amazing things. I'd say, again, just formalize them as much as you can. Try to avoid we're going to create some mentorship, go be a shadow or go find somebody to shadow. Try to be really deliberate in what you're setting up, because that will create success. All right, culture. So this is a big one, and I could talk about this for a while, but all I really want you to know in this is you really have to look within. And it's not a bad thing that rugby was created by men for men, and then we've kind of been growing it that same way for the last however many years, and we've kind of added women on top of that without really changing too much. But that's our problem right there, is we have to evolve, we have to grow. So I want you to look internally at your community, whatever your community is, and think about where and when are you hosting meetings? What is the overall kind of behavior that you have at your meetings, at tournaments, at games? What kind of time commitments are you asking of people, or what are the needs, and are you trying to create environments that make sense for your members? I have a million examples on a lot of this. So one of the examples is I walked into a level 1 coaching course, delivering the course in a clubhouse, and painted on the bathroom door was a very sexualized, submissive image of a woman. And there was nothing painted on the men's door. And I was the first person to bring up, how is this here, and why is it even here, and do you realize the effect that has on women walking into that environment for an education course or a meeting? And it's things like that, or overall behavior. And I'm gonna get killed by all the referees by saying this, but kangaroo court, if you do know what that is very popular in the referee societies and groups. Now put yourself again in the shoes of a female walking into her first tournament that weekend. She wants to perform at her best, but she's also now worried that you're going to be watching her for all the things that she messes up on, and then you're going to kind of make fun of her for it later and have some drinks over it. It is a fun traditional thing that we do, but have you considered how comfortable people are in that environment? So I really want you to look inside and look internally in your community and ask yourself, is this something we've just been doing for years and that's just how we do things here? Or should we actually tailor it to the needs of our members? I think the childcare example that Tamara gave is fantastic. Bring a babysitter, because a lot of women can't commit to something because they have families. So you're just changing one small thing in your culture, in your community, that's making it more conducive for women to come through the door. All right. 2 more topics. So who's your audience? I think if you take anything away from today, from my presentation, I hope you take this away, which is You need to just constantly ask yourself, who are my members, or who are the members that I want to be a part of my community? And you need to start changing what you're doing and tailor it to that audience. So in this case, we're talking about females here, is when you're doing things like job postings or marketing and using language and imagery, are you actually using, again, the same things you've been using, or are you using language and imagery that's more appealing to women? Are you tailoring your programs, like we just talked about, the time commitments and how your programs are structured? Are you tailoring it to the needs of women? And kit as well. You know, are you gonna go, hey John, here's a 5XL women's polo. We're gonna have you go all out in the field this weekend and go ahead and coach your first game in it. I hope you feel comfortable. Might be a little tight, might not fit you well. I'm being facetious here, but truly, I mean, the number of men's smalls and even boys extra large shirts and shorts and like clothing items that I have that don't fit me properly, but yet I'm asked to do my job in them, it's so uncomfortable. And you would never do that to a man. You wouldn't. So please don't do it to a woman. If you have to order 12 more pieces of clothing just in a women's specific size, because that's your minimum, do it. Even if you only have one woman on your team, or your society or your club. Going back to this again, I can't stress this enough, that we don't want to put women in uncomfortable situations. We're already fearing what that role is going to be as a coach or referee. So how do we get more comfortable and confident? And there are going to be women who prefer men's cut stuff, and that's awesome. But there's also going to be women who don't. And I hope that you have some men that prefer women's cut stuff. But again, who is your audience and what are their needs, and how can you better tailor what you're doing to fit their needs? Because that's going to keep them there. Once they're in the door, that will keep them there for sure. I found that on the internet somewhere randomly. All right, training and education. So last big piece here. All I really want you to take away from this is get creative in this space. This is my personal opinion, but again, it's also a lot that I hear back from females, is taking a level 1 and going immediately on the field is a massive jump. And it's something that you almost have to have a certain personality to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. So consider offering some alternative educational offerings for females or all of your members. It could be professional development things like, let's take a 2-hour coaching course specifically on the scrum, or a 2-hour session reviewing the laws of the game and talking about the ones that are really prevalent in our community. These don't have to be, you have your World Rugby level 1s, but you can offer from your Potomac Referee Society or the Jamaican Rugby Union, you can offer those little professional development opportunities that again builds that comfort and confidence before women walk out on the field in that role. Female specific trainings as well. I like to make up statistics sometimes, and I have a general idea that about 15% of women, I'm going to say, in my made up statistic, are comfortable walking into a room of men and raising their hand, asking questions, and participating with no issue. The other 85% of women, again, made up statistic, don't quote me on that, they are not comfortable doing that. So we know that the majority of women are not comfortable in that environment. So how can we better create an environment for them? Make it female specific. Some of these have been piloted in the US and Canada that I'm aware of, and the feedback is overwhelming. It's overwhelmingly positive. Just saying, it was so nice to be around other women like me and to be able to have that environment where we can have good discussions and questions without feeling like we were stupid or we didn't know what we were talking about. If you need for recruitment, you need more women involved. We tend to go after our player pools, but go train an entire team. I think, again, the small minority of women are going to come to your course, but the majority are going to wait until they have the right information, they feel 100% comfortable and confident. So you can train up an entire club team with a rookie rugby or get into rugby course, or maybe a referee course. And then with a little bit more knowledge and experience, now you're going to get more women to come through the door. And diversify your pool too. Look at the moms and the girlfriends and the wives and the sisters and the cousins and the grandmas. Everybody's at the sidelines every day for practice or for games. Bring them into the mix. Get them more involved in a real way. And again, that half step is the bottom one there. Consider alternative roles. You don't have to be a head coach or a head referee to become a coach or a referee. You could be a touch judge. You can do the timekeeping for a game. You could be an assistant coach or a position specific coach, or, there's a lot of other roles within that space that are a great half step into it that help build that comfort, confidence, knowledge, experience, all of that. So as I wrap up, know your audience. I think, again, this is the biggest thing I want you to take away. Know your audience. You're trying to get more females in the room. It hasn't happened for years. Why don't we figure out what they need and what they want and bring them into the room that way? But you have to ask the question. You also have to look within. And this is the unpopular opinion of telling, things that are rooted in years and years of culture that you might need to change. But it's not change, it's evolving, it's evolution. We're evolving to, again, get more women in the room. And focus on alignment, meaning aligning those two. What are you trying to achieve? And what are the actual needs and wants of your members? And do they actually align? You might be trying to do one thing and going in this direction when actually you'd have more success if we just focused on the needs and wants of our members. So I know I gave you a lot of information. I went through it very fast. Nothing that I said is an overnight solution. And I want to stress that. It does seem impossible until it's done. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort. And it takes commitment to, yes, I actually want more women in the room, and this is what we're going to do. Start small. Start with something really simple. Make a small change. And if you get one more woman who shows up, then that's a massive success, because 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 4, and so forth and so forth. So take the time, invest, do your research, and try one of these things. A small change will end up making a big change over time. You just have to be committed to it and stick with it. The last thing I'd say is just a resource. I wanted to make sure I plugged really quickly. World Rugby has the Try and Stop Us campaign, which I know we've heard about in a lot of the other talks. One of the tools that they have is the Women Coaching Rugby Toolkit. It's available on women.rugby. A lot of similar stuff that I talked about, and then going beyond that with a lot of research behind it. So really great tool, free to access in multiple languages as well. So go ahead and check that out also. And that's what I have for you. So please put your questions in the chat. I'm going to jump over there now and see what I can find. So hopefully, Jake, I answered your question in terms of how we can attract more female coaches to that environment. Let's see what else we got here. So Liz, thank you for sending, you're agreeing, profiling women, taking these roles. Would love to see more analysis on how women have been impacted, for example, at the university level. Absolutely. I think there's not enough research out there right now, truly. So I think the more that we can try to get our own data, even if it's within our own community, it's just massive. All right. So Joe, okay, so anything specific for males to help be advocates? This is a great question. And honestly, Joe, there is a lot of research out there that's beyond the sport space, beyond rugby. But I think, again, we absolutely need man-ambassadors. Is what I've heard that term one time and I stole it. So man-ambassadors, meaning helping to bring women up with you, helping to get them that seat at the table and participate at that table. I think some really great examples in some of the stuff that I presented is shadowing opportunities. Women might not know if they're ready for that. So I'd say if you have some potential females, some potential leaders on your team, or some women that you know that might really benefit from shadowing you while you're coaching, or if you know of some job opportunities or you hear of opportunities, to kind of help gently push them in that direction and help bring them and guide them in that. Like if you know that Tamara has a team and she's got a whole women coaching staff, and say, hey, maybe you should go check out her practice, and then connect women up with other women that are doing that. I think doing that kind of stuff and advocating for women as well. If you are involved in terms of like appointing a female for a coach, appointing a coach position and advocating for some females that you know, I think that's really, really important. So other questions? Okay, got one here. Fine. So Scott, great question. So what are or where can we find more positive and reinforcing examples of team bonding to replace the too often unpleasant and embarrassing kangaroo court. Thank you, Scott, for not being mad that I called out kangaroo court there. So, and Tamara, I'd love for you to jump into here too if you know of some other examples for this. But, you know, I think there's, again, we need to look outside of rugby. There's a lot of research out there on team activities, team building, team bonding, and a lot of really great things that you can do, activities, like actual physical activities you can do, or just sitting around and chatting through things. But there's a lot of good tools out there in terms of like social psychology and group dynamics, and some team building activities that you can do that work really, really well. And they're goofy, and like, I mean, something so simple like the human knot is, we all remember that. We all did like our hands in the middle, and we had to work together as a team to accomplish something. And that alone is bonding. The bonding is making one goal for the team to go after, and doing an activity where they get to work towards a common goal and work together will bond your team much better than maybe shaming them for some things they messed up on, even though it's funny and entertaining. But Tamara, do you have anything you'd add to that in terms of the team bonding aspect to replace that, some of the less attractive options?
Yeah, sure. One of the ideas that we use for Guardian Angels is after the game, we would nominate one player, and we'd speak on her accolades. And what we would do is basically say, discuss some of the things that she did off of the pitch. And so we looked at, possibly her membership on the board, or things that she did for fundraising and things like that. And then we would give her an award. And so one of our awards was a bottle of wine and, Guardian Angel headband and things like that. But what we were trying to do is we were trying to spark conversation between our mentors and then the younger players, so that they can see it's not just about rugby on the green. It's not just a pitch. It's also, what do you do off the pitch to actually keep rugby going for women and for the community? So if we were to change this into a refereeing situation, it could be speaking on something that you did or something that you're inspired to do, and then speak about it. And then everyone else shares, and then you're able to see, where people are thinking to go when it comes to refereeing. Maybe someone's thinking about possibly refereeing at an international level, or maybe someone's thinking about possibly moving forward to teach a course. And so that you could work together, like, oh, I was thinking about teaching a course in the future too, or I was thinking about doing this. And now you have people who can connect and kind of take those ideas and move forward. It's kind of like networking. And so that's more of less of an example of like a game perspective. That's more on the business perspective, educational and goal setting perspective. But that's kind of something that we did with the Guardian Angels, is getting those women to think about, how can I connect with them, and maybe think about moving forward a goal that I may have.
Perfect. And I wanted to go back, Joe, I was thinking a little bit more on just kind of how men can be advocates, and keep going back to this, just like ask the question. It's probably asking the question on a couple different sides, specifically on, make sure you're asking the female that you want to support. So if you do have a promising coach or a referee and you want to help bring her up, is asking her, hey, what is the best way I can support you? Because you may be better connected in that community than she is, and maybe know a little bit more of the ins and outs. But again, we don't necessarily ask. So ask her, hey, because again, personality wise, I may say, oh yeah, Joe, I want you to stand up in a meeting and advocate for me. And then the next woman over might say, no, please don't do that. And then I think as well, ask your community, like, hey, you need to be the one in the room when they say, hey, we should appoint a coach, or there's a new team happening, we need to have a coach. You need to put your hand up and say, it needs to be a woman. It needs to be a woman of color. It needs to be a woman of this. And the more that we can advocate in those groups for women, I think that is a massive thing that you can do as our male advocates. It's so and so important, for sure. All right, I don't see any other questions, which is fantastic. We're only 5 minutes past. So yeah, number one man ambassador. That's right, Joe, that's you. But thank you truly to all the men who are on this call. Thank you so much for being a part of this. it's so important that you're there with us in this. So I think try some different things. Again, I just want to share quickly my email. So if you have other questions or you want to continue the conversation, my email's up there. Happy to connect you with Tamara as well. And again, brainstorm ideas on what we can do. We can create committees. We can, connect you up with different resources, whatever you need. That's all about it. It's all about women supporting women, men supporting women, and getting more women in the room. So let's do that. So I'm excited to see what you all come up with. Thank you so much for your time. And we will see you next time. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Have a great night.
All right. Take care.